LWVSB.org, and it will be available on YouTube as well. Because we're holding this forum via Zoom webinar, there is some information about the logistics of the meeting that might be helpful. A webinar is different from a regular Zoom meeting because the attendees are muted and you cannot see the other attendees. The only people who will be visible to you are the panelists, myself, Deborah Rogers, and Susan Epstein, a member of the Goleta Union School District Board. Assisting behind the scenes are other league members, including Anthony Moran, who will help with questions and answers. The purpose of our forum tonight is to share with you the recommendations of our state and local league for voting on the propositions and the local ballot measures that will appear on your ballot in the election into November 2020. The League of Women Voters is nonpartisan and it does not support nor oppose candidates or political parties. The great rights of the people of the state of California. In our state government, we have legislators who propose legislation that goes through a process and may or may not become law. We also have other means in our state of changing our constitution. We have ballot propositions or initiatives, which are used to pass laws and amend that constitution. Sometimes we have referendum, which is used to approve or repeal laws passed by our state legislature. We also may have a recall, which is used to remove or replace elected officials. But tonight, we will be discussing ballot propositions or initiatives, which will be on your ballot coming to you next week, or in our case, we received our ballots yesterday. This year, there are no referendums or recalls on the ballot. We have 8 propositions to discuss this evening. 5 are recommended for yes votes, 3 are recommended for no votes. We'll present the yes positions first and then the no positions. Additionally, we have 2 ballot measures which our local league in Santa Barbara has supported. We'll take questions this evening after the first proposition, which is 15, then again after the rest of the propositions that are recommended for a yes vote, and again after the propositions recommended for a no vote. We do encourage you to seek additional information from resources on the California League website. That would be LWVC.org. Proposition 15. We could spend the whole evening discussing Proposition 15. It's likely the most controversial proposition on the ballot this year, and you've probably seen ads for and against it on television already. So please put any questions in the Q&A box and we'll do our best to answer them. Our state league has been exploring appropriate ways to address the problems with the old 1978 Proposition 13 for several years. Why? Because it doesn't meet the needs of our communities and our schools. When it was initially passed, it provided revenue from both large corporations and from homeowners at about a 50-50 ratio. But over the years, this ratio has eroded. And now corporations and industries provide only about 10% of the revenue compared to 90% coming from residential sources. Why? Well, corporations have been able to avoid reassessments using corporate structures that make it difficult to determine if property ownership has actually changed. So the League of Women Voters of the state, California, and several other state organizations have worked on ways to address this problem for several years. The proposed proposition protects small businesses valued at less than $3 million in property value, and then there are other protections for personal property as well. Homeowners and rental home properties are protected, as are congregate homes like nursing homes, mobile home parks, and the residential parts of mixed-use dwellings. Currently, Large corporations and industries benefiting from these low property assessments effectively discourage new business and industry from coming into our state. So we're at a disadvantage in attracting newer industries to California. And importantly, there's concern about our educational excellence and the ability of California school to turn out learned workers for those industries and businesses. Our children don't have the resources in their schools to cope with the society that they live in. We don't have counselors, nurses, or librarians full-time in our schools to help children with the issues around immigration, COVID-19, and poverty. In 1978, our schools were 7th in the nation in terms of funding, and now we're 37th to 41st, depending on which report you read. The average classroom size in California is now the largest in the nation, a rather sad distinction. Nearly half of all small businesses in our state are home-based, so they're treated as residential property. A recent study in Silicon Valley by Beacon Economics has determined that there will be little effect on small businesses, even those with triple net leases. Agriculture land, farms growing broccoli and tomatoes, annual crops, are exempt from this proposition. However, land growing nut and fruit trees are industries and they're not exempt. We have increased property, we anticipate increased property tax revenue that will help cities and counties provide services needed in our communities. County supervisors will have discretion as to how the community funds are spent, and accordingly, they'll have the responsibility to report back to the state as to how those dollars were spent for transparency. Roughly adding up the potential benefit to Santa Barbara County, I came up with more than 100 million potentially available for public schools, community colleges, and our local governments. The proposed changes do not take effect immediately. The large industries and corporations will be addressed in the year 2022-23, and only 10 to 12% of those corporations will provide 90% of the revenue. Small businesses won't be affected until the year 2025-26. So there's time to recover from our current stressful pandemic, as well as recognize that there is little change for those small businesses. So we strongly encourage you to pass Proposition 15. One more little thing, and it's not really little. Last year when we collected signatures for this proposition to be put on the ballot, we collected in the state, throughout the state, 1.7 million signatures. That was the largest number of signatures ever collected to put a ballot measure on the ballot. So vote for Proposition 15. Do we have questions?
Pam, at this point, we don't have any questions, although maybe everybody's just getting warmed up, and so we'll see. I'm just going to make a small fact check correction, and that is that Proposition 25, which Deborah is going to be talking about, is in fact a referendum.
Oh, interesting. It may well be.
Yes.
I think I have heard that, and the material that we were looking for did not treat it that way.
In the voter guide that was sent out by the state, it's called a referendum, but
okay.
I'm sure you'll talk about the merits of it in a moment.
We will. Okay, we're ready for Proposition 16.
Okay. No questions for 15?
There is one question now that's just come in, and that is, how will small businesses be protected who have triple net leases?
Okay, there was a study done by Beacon Economics in the Silicon Valley, and they said that they found that it will not affect small businesses with triple net leases that much. Also, as I've read materials about this, small businesses have the option of going to another place. So there still will be competition for rental properties. So it's anticipated that things will level out and even out. It's not anticipated that the property tax change would be that great for a lot of those particular kinds of buildings that rent to small businesses. Okay, and that Beacon Economics information just came out within the last week. It's a fairly recent study, and they looked at, I believe, as many as 13 counties up around the Silicon Valley area. I know the triple net leases are an issue for people, that they just don't feel like it's going to be that big a problem.
Pam, there's a follow-up to that question, and which is, will higher taxes be passed on through to the tenant?
That's what a triple net lease does. As I understand a triple net lease, tenants indirectly become responsible for taxes and changes in taxes and repairs to the building. And I don't know what the third thing is. I figure there's probably a third part of a triple net lease. That question, came to me ages ago when I was getting signatures on petitions. I talked to my hairdresser and she mentioned triple net leases. I'd never heard of it before, so I looked into it a little bit. And then I really was pleased when I saw the information come out from the YesOn15.org group saying that this survey had been done by Beacon Economics, and they had found that there would be little effect. So it might go up a little bit, but they would not probably go up that much. Plus, it's also likely that the amount that a building owner's taxes would be increased will be spread out toward all the renters of their property. So it shouldn't be as much as it might seem like it would be. It would be spread out. So if you have an increase, it would be divided by 10 or 15 tenants. Does that help, I hope?
No follow-ups yet, so I guess we're ready to move on to the next section.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Proposition 16. Hi, I'm Deborah Rogers, and I am going to be trying to urge you to please vote yes on Proposition 16, Opportunity for All. And here's the background. Proposition 209 was passed in 1996, and it banned affirmative action in state hiring, contracting, and education. And what 16 does is reverses that ban so that public entities may consider gender, race, national origin regarding college admissions, public hiring, and public contracting as one of many criteria so they get a better and fuller view of the candidates. What it does not do, what 16 does not do, is allow quotas or discrimination of any kind. California has strong anti-discrimination laws. So why are we backing Proposition 16? Well, since Proposition 209 went into effect, underrepresented students in California have dropped 12% across the UC system, which means lower college graduation rates, lower grad school admissions, grad school graduations, of course, and lower lifetime learnings. Also, since 209, public sector jobs have decreased for people of color, especially in top management. And women and minority-owned businesses are losing about $1 billion a year in public contracting. Right now, the Black Lives Matter movement and other racial justice movements are reminding us that we have systemic inequities in our systems. And the pandemic, as we all know, is hitting, especially the economic part, is hitting populations of color harder than anybody else. So This is an equal opportunity program, which is a time-tested way to fight systemic racism and gender discrimination, level the playing field for everybody, and give everyone a chance at good jobs, good wages, and a good education. It's an important tool to ensure an equitable recovery and to confront racism and unfairness in our state. So please vote yes on Proposition 16. Proposition 209 is a failed experiment, and it's time to repeal it. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A, and we will try to answer them at the end of all the yeses. Okay, back to Pam.
Okay. Proposition 17 is to restore voting rights. This proposition allows people on parole to vote. Restoring voting rights to Californians who've completed their prison terms is a matter of justice, equity, and fundamental fairness. The League firmly believes that the strength of our democratic government depends on the active participation of everyone, including people who are on parole. Currently, about 75% of the men leaving California prisons are either African American, Latino, or Asian American. This percentage may be about the same for women leaving the prison. After people are released from prison, they're often working, they're paying taxes, they're raising families, they're going to school, and they're rebuilding their lives. And they're our neighbors. Governmental decisions impact their lives just as much as they impact everyone else's lives. So assuring that they may vote helps us achieve a more representative democracy. So let's vote yes to restore voting rights to people who are on parole.
Is Proposition 18 up? It's not showing on my screen.
I've seen it. I'm sorry. Yes, Proposition 18.
Okay. Hi, it's Deborah again. Urging you to vote yes on Proposition 18, voting rights for some 17-year-olds. And here's what it does. It allows 17-year-olds who will be 18 at the next general election to vote in the primary and special elections. And there is nothing radical about this idea. Currently, 19 states and the District of Columbia have similar laws. We are supporting 18 because young people are significantly underrepresented in the California electorate. In the 2016 election, only 36% of young voters voted. And Proposition 18 will engage young voters when they are seniors in high school and they are studying government. So we're getting them at a time of extreme interest. They're going to be voting, their classmates are going to be voting, they're studying about it, and it's a great way to make them comfortable with voting and develop a lifelong habit of being voters. Also, as we all know, many 17-year-olds are engaged in critically important civic areas, whether it's gun violence control or racial justice or climate justice. We will benefit from having their enthusiasm and their voices heard at the ballot box. Finally, it is only fair that people eligible to vote in a general election should have the opportunity to decide who and what is going to be on the ballot. So please vote yes on Proposition 18, a very simple one to understand. It's a fundamental issue of fairness. Plus, it helps create lifelong voters. Again, if you have a question, just put it in the Q&A. And the next one, we're voting yes on. And again, the slides are not showing on my screen. So was Prop 25 up?
Yes, Prop 25, in cash money bail.
Yeah. So the next one we would like you to please vote yes on is Proposition 25 to end cash money bail. Here's the background. In 2018, our legislature passed SB 10 that abolished the money bail system, which means that those who are arrested or arraigned needn't post bail to stay free before trial. Remember, they haven't been convicted of anything. it didn't go into effect. This law did not go into effect because the American Bail Coalition, which is the bail industry, organized a referendum campaign to repeal the law and place it on the ballot as this proposition, Proposition 25. Another piece of information, almost 46,000 Californians, disproportionately Black and Latinx, are held in jail but not yet tried. So here's what it does. It replaces the money bail system with a pre-trial risk assessment tool that California will develop as part of Proposition 25. This assessment tool will take any number of criteria to categorize suspects as low, medium, or high risk in two areas: failing to appear, that is flight, and public safety. Those who are considered low risk are released pending their trial. Medium are either can be released or detained. And those who are considered high risk remain in detention, but of course they always have the right to argue their situation in front of a judge. Also, those suspected of most misdemeanors are automatically released. And this pretrial risk assessment tool must go through a validation process at least every year to determine whether or not it is indeed catching flight risks and risks to public safety, and to make sure that there is no bias against people because of their gender or their race or their national origin. And these reports must be made available to the public. So why are we asking you to please vote yes on 25? Well, the cash money bail system criminalizes poverty and reflects the systemic racism that plagues our criminal justice system. It disproportionately affects Black and Latinx people. People who pose little threat to public safety shouldn't lose their jobs, their homes, and their families because they lack the money to pay for bail, when other people in exactly the same circumstances can go home just because they have the money. The cash money bail system also puts great pressure to plea deal, even for people who are innocent, so they don't have to sit in jail for possibly months and months waiting for their trial. It supports the presumption of innocence, and although it is not a perfect law, the legislature can alter it. But if we vote no, we vote down Proposition 25, then the current money bail system will be enshrined in state law. So please vote yes on 25. Support a criminal justice system that is just and fair and effective for everyone at every stage of the criminal justice process, including pretrial. And again, any questions, put them in the Q&A.
And Deborah, we do have some questions.
Okay.
The first one is on Proposition 18 for the 17-year-old vote. And the
Yes.
question is, how many voters would this represent?
I have no idea. I mean, how many people are 17 are going to turn 18 in the next, I have no idea. I can tell you how much it's going to cost, but I can't tell you how many people there are.
It might depend on how many students we have who are seniors in high school. A place to start to get a number. But we don't know it.
Okay. The next series of questions are all about Proposition 25.
Okay.
So one question notes that the NAACP and the ACLU oppose Proposition 25 because of the algorithms that are purportedly unfairly targeting African Americans and the Latinx population.
That is why I stress so much that whatever, remember this algorithm has not even been developed yet. That this is why we believe it is going to be safe, because it goes through this validation process every single year. And this validation process is made public to everyone. And if it is, one of the things they look for is, has there been any bias? Has there been any biases toward people of color or because of their gender and national origin? We believe that that will be adequate, or more than adequate, to address their problems. And it's also why I said that the law may not be perfect. But if we pass it, the legislature can adjust it. But if we don't pass it, we are stuck where we are with cash bail. So our judgment is it is better to vote yes than no.
And another question, Deborah. Who does the pretrial assessment? And the person asking the question says that it seems that the bias that leads to minorities in jail will carry through to the new system.
Well, there's going to be every trial court area will develop its own assessment team to work this assessment tool, so that it can adjust to different large trial areas, small ones, etc. And I'm sorry, the second question was, you think the biases will just continue? Here's the point. This time you're going to get, the validation reports are going to be public, and we're going to be able to see it. Right now, it's pretty hard to see biases. It seems to the league that this is going to be safer.
Okay, do we have another question in Q&A, Anthony? I'm seeing a number there. No?
I'm not able to call it up at this moment. I think we do have a question. I'm just missing it. Oh, here we go. Somebody is asking, why not just combine cash and non-cash bail? Would bail bond companies all close if this passed?
California, yes. There would no longer be a bail bond industry in California if this passes, absolutely. Well, right now we have a combination. Some people are released on their own recognizance without having to post bail. So that's what we have now. But we don't want anybody to have to post bail because it criminalizes poverty.
And another question is, have other states adopted something like Proposition 25? And do you happen to know if they have, what the results have been?
No, I do not know. Don't have that information.
And Pam, going back to Proposition 15, how do you suggest that we address or answer the scare tactics of big business and their TV ads?
Talk to people. I've written emails to people who, when the questions have come up and I'm speaking with someone, we talk it through. And I know that everybody I talk to doesn't agree with my perception of how Proposition 15 would work. I'm hoping too that yes on Prop 15 does a few more ads and gets them out there. I've noticed some ads about the small businesses aren't appearing anymore since the results of the Beacon Economics study came out a week ago. But it could just be that they're not running right now. I really don't know. But talk to people about it. Look at additional information on the website. There is information on the California League website, as well as a website called yeson15.org. And I'd encourage people to take a look at it. It's also possible to go on there and endorse it if you're interested. If you're an official of some sort in our communities, why, feel free to endorse it too. Does that help at all?
Well, hopefully it does.
Lots of pros and cons with Proposition 15. As I said, we could go on all night, and it's unknown too in terms of exactly how it will play out for people. But we do think that they have written in some possibilities written in the possibility to help people who are running small businesses in particular. In fact, this proposition was proposed earlier with a cap of 2 million on the value of small businesses. And the designers of the proposition decided that that was too limiting. And so they went back to the drawing board and decided to propose 3 million as a cap for a small business. Okay, and it may be that we need to tweak it more, and can do that after the fact if this goes through. But it seems that we really need to do something about our very large corporations, our oil companies, and even Disneyland. They take in a lot of money and provide very little back to the state for all the benefit that they have from being in California. So we're still saying, vote yes on 15. Okay. Are we ready to move on to the no propositions?
I think we are. I think it's time to move on. There aren't any more questions at this time.
There we go. Property tax breaks. We already know that we have an inequitable property tax system, and property tax breaks in Proposition 19 essentially offers more tax breaks to people who probably don't even need them. This particular proposition allows 3 tax breaks to homeowners over 55 who purchase a replacement home, and it allows them to transfer their current tax assessment to a new home. But they're allowed to do it 3 times, not just once. And they can do it anywhere in the state. Currently, seniors, and since probably 1978, seniors have been allowed to keep their current tax assessment when they purchase a home of equal or lesser value in the county of their current residence, and that's allowed 1 time. So the idea, some of the thinking about this proposition is that it would provide more state revenue from increased home sales. And they would be able to put that increased revenue into a fund supporting firefighting. But it will not help the state fund responses to other natural disasters or public health crises. And this proposal doesn't do anything for people who are low income. Those seniors and those families who are struggling to find housing will not benefit from this proposition at all. So our state league says, let's vote no on Proposition 19. We don't need this. Questions? Put them in the chat box. No, the Q&A box. Proposition 20.
Hey, we are asking you please to vote no on Proposition 20, a rollback on criminal justice reforms. It reverses the progress we have made in recent years regarding criminal justice reform, and it reinstates longer incarceration and the old-time get tough legal system. In particular, it affects 2 voter-enacted measures that we have passed just in the last few years. Proposition 47, passed in 2014, which reduced many wobbler offenses. Wobbler offenses are those offenses that can be charged either as a felony or a misdemeanor. And it reduced many of those to misdemeanors. And then Proposition 57, we passed just in 2016, provided more parole opportunities for non-violent offenders who completed the sentence for their primary crime. Now, there are pages and pages and pages in your election guide. It explains all the things that Proposition 20 will roll back, but here are a few. It will make minor theft of some goods worth $250 to $950 punishable as a felony. It means you can steal a bike and be charged with a felony. It returns many misdemeanors to wobbler status, so they can be charged as felonies. It reclassifies some non-violent crimes into violent crimes, so they are no longer protected by Proposition 57, which was the proposition that expanded the chance of getting parole. And one of the really egregious things it does is it allows DNA collection from suspects, not anyone who's been convicted, suspects of petty crimes like shoplifting. And if the person is found not guilty, It is that person's responsibility to go into the system, navigate the system, and get their DNA sample taken out. So why are we asking you please to vote no on Proposition 20? Well, it rolls back these criminal justice reforms Californians made to reduce prison populations, which the US Supreme Court insisted that we do, and make our public safety system more just and humane. Longer sentences do not lower recidivism rates, and reducing nonviolent crimes to misdemeanors does not increase violent crime. It violates personal rights about that DNA collection, especially when you realize it's on the onus is put on the person found not guilty to go into the system and retrieve their DNA sample. And it takes us backward at a time during Black Lives Matter and other racial justice movements, and backward at a time when we're having forward movement about smart justice that increases public safety and reduces public costs. So please vote no on Proposition 20. Let us not move backwards on criminal justice reforms. And you have a question, put it in the Q&A. And back to Pam.
Okay, Proposition 24, consumer data privacy. It comes as a complex technical document, and it's 52 pages long, and many voters will not understand it. Its beneficial elements are outweighed by its privacy rollbacks and numerous shortcomings. Essentially, it places the burden on the average consumer to protect their own privacy. The average voter likely doesn't have the time to do the paperwork required for this proposal, nor can they afford to pay companies to protect their privacy to the extent that this would require. And additionally, we have a new California Data Privacy Act that we just passed in 2018. So we had this very lengthy proposal coming along before we've actually had the opportunity to see how the 2018 law works, or our legislature has had the opportunity to address any defects in that. So the League heartily says, vote no on Proposition 24. It's confusing, it's complex, and it probably isn't going to do what we would really like it to do anyway, and we need to find out how our 2018 California Data Privacy Act really works. So no on 24. And we're back to questions.
And Pam, at this time, there are no questions on the last tranche of propositions.
Okay.
So perhaps we can save any more for later. Oh, something just came in.
It just popped up, didn't it?
Just popped up on Proposition 24. And the question is, who's supporting 24?
Oh, I have no idea. Possibly those data privacy companies who want to protect our privacy for money. And other than that, I really do not know. I haven't looked into why do we have this? I have no idea who wanted this. I'm sorry. There may be more additional information in some of the League materials, but offhand, I don't know.
Thank you.
Now we want to tell you about some propositions which have no recommendation. The League has studied them and looked at them and considered them and feel like it's inappropriate to make a recommendation on them for numbers of different reasons, and some of them relate to medical issues. So the recommendations, there are 4 of them. Proposition 14 is stem cell research. There's no recommendation of a yes or a no for that one. Proposition 21, which is local governments and rent control. Again, a statewide proposition may not work out well for some individual communities around the state, and the League felt like staying away from that and not having a statewide recommendation would be the best way to go. Proposition 22 is for rideshare and delivery drivers. The State League felt like it was just kind of out of their realm of study. Our league study issues considerably and write positions. There are no positions in the state or the national leagues that relate to the rideshare and delivery driver issue. It may be that those issues have come up too recently for the league to be on top of. So it may be something that they will be studying further later. And then last, Proposition 23, the kidney dialysis clinics. This has been on our ballots before, and the league is not in favor of making a recommendation, partly because it involves some medical decisions that they question voters should be involved with. So they are recommending, they have no recommendation for kidney dialysis clinics. So that's the end of our no recommendations for the league. Now tonight we have with us Susan Epstein, a member of the Goleta Union School District. And she's here to explain the bond measure M. It's a measure M 2020 on the ballot, and it's in the Goleta Valley area. So Susan? Are you with us, Susan?
I am, yes, thank you.
Okay.
So thank you for inviting me to participate. More than ever, schools are central to democracy and opportunity. The Goleta School District's been working for the last several years to identify much needed facilities improvements and envision a teaching and learning future that's safe, equitable, and proactive in addressing climate change. The Goleta School District serves the Goleta Valley, which is an area that includes the city of Goleta, but it also includes the area between the city of Santa Barbara and the city of Goleta and Isla Vista. So it's a large area served by the school district, and remarkably, the Goleta School District has not placed a bond measure on the ballot in over 20 years. We've diligently maintained our facilities, but now we need the support and investment from our community. And for the first time since 1996, we've placed this measure on our ballot. It's Measure M on the November ballot. Measure M will upgrade STEAM classrooms. STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, art, and math. STEAM instruction includes hands-on lessons that apply science and math lessons using engineering and art design principles. Measure M will improve classroom technology and internet access. As the pandemic has highlighted, every student needs access to modern education, including technology. Even after the pandemic, this will be critical for equity and to have our students be ready for whatever the future brings. Measure M will increase renewable energy, including solar. Our facilities master plan includes solar shade structures over parking lots at our 12 facilities across the Goleta Valley with e-vehicle charging tied in. Measure M will also repair roofs, pipes, and plumbing. Most of our roofs are more than 40 years old and really need more than regular patching. Measure M also comes with ironclad taxpayer protections, including requiring a rigorous independent citizens oversight committee and qualification for state matching funds. Measure M is also a good investment. It'll protect our local property values and help our economy by bringing good jobs to our local area. Measure M is supported by more than 100 community leaders and by organizations like the League of Women Voters, the Democratic Party, Sierra Club, and the South Coast Chamber of Commerce, and has no organized opposition. However, we do need to raise awareness because it's at the bottom of the ballot and an affirmative 55% yes vote is needed for passage. I'm happy to answer any questions if you put them in the Q&A, and please support critical investment in public education with Measure M.
Okay. The Santa Barbara League has reviewed the Measure M 2020 and ballot measure, and we're supporting this measure. So we encourage you as well to vote yes on Measure M 2020 if it's on your ballot. Do we have any questions coming up for Susan? Okay.
And there aren't any questions for Susan, but we do have a bit of information that might be helpful and a general question that I think would be also helpful to answer. The general information is that Voters Edge, which is a website that is sponsored by the League, usually has information on top donors for each of the propositions. So for the question about who was sponsoring Proposition 24, looking at the donors might provide some information about that. The second question is a broader question, which is how does the League make its recommendations in the first place, and who does it?
Okay. That is explained on the California League website, and I've read it, and it's a little bit involved, but there are experts on different types of measures or different types of issues within the League, the State League Board, and also on staff there. And they refer to experts in the larger community too, to provide them with information about that. So if you look in the official voter guide, I think you'll find it explained, and I know it is explained on the League, the State League website, because that's where I've read it. So I would encourage people to look at the references that are made on our on the website with the state. There you go. Thank you very much. So Vote with the League will have a detailed analysis, and I think it may have a little bit of information about how decisions are made. The decisions that come from the state do end up at the state board. So they're voted on by the state board of the League of Women Voters before they're sent out to our local leagues. And then locally, like for our measures, we at the local level look at Measure M, and we also have looked at Measure O, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So those are some of the ways they definitely go through boards in making recommendations to the wider community. Okay.
Pam, may I answer the questions about Measure M?
There
Sure.
is a question for Susan about Measure M, which is, does Measure M have protections that prevent the funds raised from being spent elsewhere?
Yes, it does. And I also wanted to answer the prior question about who the major donors are to Measure M. So we decided not to raise any money for Measure M and are running a completely grassroots campaign. So there are no donors, although a number of people have offered, but we have been endorsed by a really widespread group within the community. And in terms of protections, there's the Citizen Oversight Committee. And so that would that committee is going to make sure that the funds provided through the measure go to the projects that are outlined explicitly in the measure. And in addition, the language of the measure, the resolution when we put it on the ballot, said that no money could be spent on administration. So it's only going to be for the things, again, in the measure, the improvements that are outlined.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I see another number in that Q&A box. Is that another question?
No, it was just someone thanking you for responding.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Susan. Thank you for coming this evening and joining us for this.
Thank you.
The next measure, vote yes on Goleta Measure O 2020. The Santa Barbara League Board also voted to support Measure O 2020. And I don't know if I said, but I meant to say, we also voted to support Measure M 2020, the Goleta School Board. So Measure O will increase the term for the mayor of Goleta to 4 years, and it will only appear on the ballots of the Goleta city residents. So I'm going to read to you what you would find if you look up the city of Goleta information, and it's an impartial analysis prepared by the city attorney for Measure O 2020. It's a little bit about the history of how this ends up on the ballot. The ballot measure O is a measure placed on the ballot by the City Council, asking the voters to decide whether to change the term of the directly elected mayor from 2 years to 4 years. In 2016, just 4 years ago, the electorate passed Measure C, providing that the mayor be elected directly by the people. And prior to that, council members selected which of them would serve as the mayor, and they rotated the position annually. Measure C established a 2-year term for the mayor. And by contrast, the other 4 council members are elected to 4-year terms. So we're slowly moving. It was 1 year when they took turns, and then it was elected to 2 years, and now we're talking about 4 years. Under state law, the electorate may approve either a 2-year or a 4-year term for a directly elected mayor. If this proposed measure is approved, the mayor term would be changed to 4 years, commencing with the term starting in November 2020. A yes vote is in favor of a 4-year term. A no vote is to retain the existing 2-year term. A majority vote is required for the measure to be enacted. So we're recommending voting yes for a 4-year term for Goleta's mayor. And also this will provide an opportunity for our mayors to not be campaigning all the time that they are serving in order to be run for election again in just 2 years. So that's part of the logic about supporting Measure O. Now, there's several resources available to anyone on the California League website. We've already talked about this a little bit. We listed 4 of them on this slide, and they're readily available to you there. In the Vote with the League, there are links to extensive explanations on each of the propositions, and it may help you make a decision if you have a dilemma on how to vote on a particular measure. We've also distributed copies of the Easy Voter Guide around town throughout the community. You might look for them in small grocery stores, and also I believe the food bank will be distributing copies in boxes for the next week or so. And this is part of our league's efforts to assure that our citizens have great information to be informed voters. And I think we had, I don't know how many, lots of boxes showing up at Anthony's house. And then being distributed. So we want to thank you for being with us this evening, and we sincerely hope that the information we've presented will be helpful to you as you make decisions on how to vote this year. Voting is one of our most important responsibilities as citizens of this state and of this country. We'll have a recording of this webinar posted on the Santa Barbara League's website. That's at www.lwvsantabarbara, all spelled out, .org. And later it will appear on YouTube. We want to thank you to our support staff and presenters, Vijaya Jamalamadaka, our local league president, to Susan Epstein, the Goleta Union School Board member, and to Deborah Rogers, a league member, as well as Anthony Moran, another league member, and other folks who are supporting us this evening. And I bid you good night. Thank you all. I see questions in that Q&A. Do we need to answer those, Anthony?
Actually, they're just expressions of gratitude for an excellent presentation, Pam.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck.